my theory is that UV light isn't harmful to us. It just our lifestyle has created a poor relationship with UV light.
Yeah, I think
like
that's
the
true.
reason why I say that.
Yeah, I think
There
that's
was
true.
I was a roofer back in college, right? And I used to work with this guy that worked in his like shorts all day long, right? And he looked like he was Mexican, even though he was like European white, but he was like bronze skin. Like he looked great, and his level of vitamin D and melanin, and it was just fucking through the roof,
Yeah.
And around that same time, there was a study being done where they were studying roofers. That's probably why it caught my attention. They were studying skin cancer, right? Because they say UV light's the biggest cause of skin cancer. But people that had the lowest number of skin cancer, or like the lowest count or the lowest occurrence of skin cancer, are roofers. Like no one that the roof gets skin cancer. They spend all day in the sun. There's no shade on the roof. The only shade you get is a cloud, right? And so they found that if you spend all day in the sun like we're supposed to, you only benefit from it. There's no negative effects. But if you decide to lay in the sun for a week to get a tan, and you spend every day under the fluorescent lights in your house, that's when it gets dangerous. I think is it's just your body is probably we blamed the UV light as the cause for it, but I think But it's funny too. We talk about light frequency and different spectrums too, because my dad and I were discussing it yesterday or 2 nights ago, because we have a wood stove upstairs and a wood stove downstairs, right? To try and keep the house warm. We have other forms of heat too, but wood stove is what we prefer because it's more affordable, right? And it smells good. Like it's so nice sitting in front of a warm fire,
Yeah.
And so we have a huge wood stove in the basement that just eats wood like an industrial machine. It just eats wood all day long. And there's a baffle that fell down the other day, right? It fell down, and so we had to let the stove cool down, and it had been warped from just years of abuse. So my dad took it out to the barn, hammered it out straight again, and I reinstalled the baffle. But I didn't put the baffle all the way to the back of the stove. I left one corner out a bit. So flames were coming up around the baffle, and it caused the stove to turn like bright orange, right? And I was just happened to say to my dad, I said, do you realize that bright orange color that steel turns when it gets to like 800 degrees Celsius? I think it's around 500 degrees Celsius. It starts to turn orange. I said, everything turns that color at 500 degrees. Your skin does. Mind you, your skin would turn to something else. But like the glass turns that same color when it's 500 degrees. So does rock. Everything that we know about in the known universe, when it reaches over 500 degrees, it turns orange. And the hotter it gets, the closer to white it gets, right? It turns from like an orange to like a yellow eventually, right? And then eventually to white. And my dad was like, that's not true. Plastic doesn't do it. And I said, well, plastic melts before it gets there. But if you can contain the material that plastic's made out of and continue to heat at that temperature, if it doesn't evaporate before it gets there, it will turn orange. And he didn't really believe me, I don't think, at first, because he's never really thought about it, right? But I heard about this on a YouTube channel called Vsauce.
Oh, yeah,
years ago. I was watching this. Yeah, he was talking about it. And I forget what he called it. Like, I think he just called it iridescent orange or something. But they referenced it as black body radiation, right? About how, like, so anything above like 0 degrees Kelvin, the farther you get from Kelvin, there's different light you emit. You emit photons yourself. Like they're not reflecting, they're being emitted. Now we don't see them because our eyes aren't equipped to see anything below 500 degrees Celsius that emits light. But lizards can apparently. Apparently some reptiles can look at something that's room temperature and look at something that's like 10 degrees above room temperature, and it can tell from 10 feet away because it's a different color.
Yeah.
And that's like again, like it just, and more of this mind fuck shit, and it's all based on frequencies again, right? Because the molecules are vibrating faster at higher temperatures and they emit different light.
Yeah.
And that's just like, because to me, I always understood that light was just reflections. Nothing produced light other than, like, I mean, you can make a flashlight, you can make electricity produce light, but most things in nature, like photon was like a product of like a glowing ball of like something burning, right? Fire, lightning, like it was like a chemical reaction of some sort. But to realize that like everything is always emitting light, not just reflecting light, but emitting it, that above Kelvin is a mind fuck to me. Like,
yeah, that's how night vision works, isn't it? And infrared detectors and all that kind of stuff. And bees can see the colours that we don't see because when you look at a plant under certain lights, it's got patterns that are meant to attract bees because they can see it, they can sense it. Yeah, there's a whole like universe that we just don't see, and it's fascinating. Most of it's not doing anything. It's a little bit like the sound spectrum. I mean, most of what we hear is located around 2 kilohertz because that's where our hearing is sensitive to the voice, which is the main thing that we need to hear. And the most of the other stuff we can hear is to do with potential predators. Like we need to hear the crackling of dry grass and things like that. But elephants can hear. They can hear way down to 2 or 3 hertz through the soles of their feet. Apparently, they can hear another herd of elephants like from 10 miles away because they can feel it through their feet. It's just, God, imagine having that kind of sense, or imagine being a whale and being able to send out a signal that bounces back to you, and you've got a brain that can tell the texture of everything round about you by the signal that you sent out. Just absolutely amazing. I love to think about that kind of stuff. But yeah, everything fluoresces, and everything fluoresces differently depending on the energy. But light, as far as I know, jumps energy states. It's a weird, one of these weird things about the quantum world is that light, electrons have different energy states, don't they? They jump from one to the other. It's not like a linear progression if you actually look at it mathematically. It's fucked up and weird. The more you look at particles in the quantum world, it's just. Somebody said the other day, God designed the world, but never thought we would look at this stuff. So he didn't make it make sense. He just went, yeah, that's the way it is. So he didn't bother to hide it. He just went, yeah, that'll be fine. They'll never look there. And the same with cosmology. He didn't think we'd ever look 13.7 billion light years away. He didn't think we'd ever have the technology to do that. So he just left a whole bunch of shit lying about out there, And now we're seeing it and going, that doesn't make any sense. Well, why would you expect it to make sense? Of course it doesn't make sense.